Throughout the dark alleys of human history, the methods used to punish men have often crossed the line between justice and cruelty. Among the most haunting examples is the Brazen Bull, an ancient Greek invention that transformed agony into a twisted form of performance. Created by Perillos of Athens and presented to the tyrant Phalaris of Acragas, this hollow bronze bull had a small door where victims were placed once the door was locked. A fire would be lit underneath, slowly roasting the person alive. But what made it even more horrific was its internal design, which converted human screams into eerie animalistic sounds, resembling the bellowing of a real bull. According to ancient sources, the inventor, Perillos, was forced inside by Phalaris to test the device, and though he was pulled out before death, he was ultimately executed nonetheless. The Brazen Bull was not only a tool of death, but a symbol of how power could be used to turn punishment into spectacle. Some historians debate the tale's authenticity, yet ancient records like those of Diodorus Siculus indicate the bull's use as a political weapon, eliminating enemies while entertaining the crowd. Fast forward to Viking legends and we encounter the blood eagle, a ritual so brutal that even its existence is still debated. According to Norse sagas, this form of execution was used by the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok to punish King Gla of Northumbria, who had thrown Ragnar into a pit of venomous snakes. In response, the sons captured Gla, carved open his back, broke his ribs outward like wings, and pulled his lungs through the wounds, presenting it as an offering to their god Odin. Many scholars consider this an exaggeration, perhaps a poetic transformation of battle wounds or standard execution into ritual horror, regardless of its historic accuracy. The image of the blood eagle has embedded itself in our understanding of Viking cruelty and myth. Moving to medieval Europe, we encounter the terrifying practice of rat torture, which used nature's own instincts to destroy human flesh and spirit. One method involved placing a starved rat in a metal container atop the victim's stomach, then heating the container so the rat, in desperation, gnawed its way into the body. Historical records from the Dutch Revolt mention such punishments, while modern accounts suggest similar torture was used by secret police in some regimes. Even the Tower of London has been connected to this horror, where prisoners were thrown into rat-infested dungeons, unable to sleep or defend themselves from the creatures in darkness. The psychological and physical torment of rat torture turned natural fear into an instrument of control. Perhaps no device is more associated with medieval horror than the rack used widely during the Spanish Inquisition and the Tudor era. The rack was designed to pull limbs apart, dislocate joints, and tear muscles. Prisoners tied at wrists and ankles were slowly stretched by rollers. Victims often confessed to crimes they never committed simply to end the pain. One such victim was Guy Fawkes, involved in the failed gunpowder plot. After days on the rack, his once clear signature became barely recognizable evidence of the torment he endured. Chroniclers recorded its use especially under Henry VIII and Elizabeth I, often against traitors and dissidents. Its very sound struck fear into those imprisoned nearby. Equally horrifying was the sawing method used in ancient Rome, medieval China, and referenced in religious texts. Often performed from the groin downward, it maximized pain and prolonged life as long as possible. Emperor Caligula of Rome was said to favor this method for those who defied him. Medieval Chinese accounts mention two-person saws used to execute criminals slowly and brutally. Religious writings like the Book of Hebrews suggest that even prophets like Isaiah may have been victims of such punishments. Though historical certainty is lacking, these stories reveal that sawing was both known and feared. Across cultures, impalement too stands out as one of the most shocking punishments, linked closely to Vlad the Impaler of Wallachia, who used it to punish enemies. Traitors and invaders. Accounts say that during the siege of Targovicut, thousands of corpses lined the battlefield, impaled on tall stakes to break the morale of invading Ottoman forces. Yet impalement was not exclusive to Vlad. Ancient Assyrian reliefs show similar executions used against rebels and captives, and the Babylonians and Persians also adopted this method, creating a legacy of fear and control, stretching back centuries in both East and West in the long list of horrifying punishments. The method of being drawn and quartered by horses remains one of the most gruesome, used primarily for acts of treason. This punishment involved tying the victim's limbs to 4 separate horses and commanding the animals to pull in opposite directions until the body was torn apart. One of the most infamous executions of this kind occurred in France in 1757 when Robert Francois d'Amiens was punished for attempting to assassinate King Louis XV. The spectacle was not only painful but prolonged, as executioners had to slice tendons and ligaments when the horses could not finish the job quickly. It served as a clear message from the ruling class to the people that rebellion would be crushed in the most brutal ways possible. Similar executions were carried out in medieval England, with one of the most well-known being the death of William Wallace in 1305. After his capture, he was hanged, mutilated, and finally quartered. His remains were displayed across the country as a warning to any who would rise against the crown. In Asia, the Mongol Empire also used horses as a tool for execution. In some cases, rebels were dismembered or trampled using similar tactics that reinforced their dominance over conquered populations. Another gruesome instrument of torture was the breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, used throughout France and Germany. This device was designed not only to kill but to do so slowly and painfully. The victim was bound to a large wooden wheel, and executioners would use iron bars to systematically shatter bones, starting with the limbs and working inward. In some cases, the condemned were left alive for hours or even days, exposed to the elements until death took them. One notorious victim was Peter Neers, a bandit in 16th century Germany, accused of killing over 500 people. After days of torture, his body was broken on the wheel and left on display to deter others from similar crimes. The breaking wheel symbolized more than just punishment. It was an act of public theater, one that transformed human suffering into a warning etched into the minds of those who witnessed it. Another disturbing example is castration, used historically not just as punishment, but as a method of control and political strategy. In the Byzantine Empire, castration was common for neutralizing threats to the throne, since it ensured that the victim could not produce heirs. Basil the Parakoimonos was castrated as a child, but later rose to power as a palace official, demonstrating how this form of punishment did not always eliminate influence. In China, eunuchs held high positions in the imperial court, especially during the Ming dynasty. Men like Zheng He, a castrated admiral who led massive naval expeditions, proved that even those who had suffered such fates could wield tremendous power. Eunuchs were seen as safe choices for political roles because they could not establish dynasties of their own. In the Ottoman Empire, eunuchs controlled the harem and acted as advisors to the Sultan. The chief black eunuch held immense influence and was one of the most powerful figures in the palace. Castration removed personal ambition but not political capability, and in many empires it became a method of shaping loyalty through suffering. History also records punishments that harness both human and animal instincts. One such method involved using animals as agents of death. Beyond rats and horses, there were cases of victims being thrown into pits with wild beasts or being sewn into animal skins and left to rot or be devoured by predators. These punishments served to dehumanize and degrade the condemned, stripping them not only of life but of dignity. Perhaps the most chilling element shared among all these punishments is the transformation of execution into a public event meant to instill fear and control rather than justice. The pain endured by victims was prolonged, displayed, and exaggerated to make an example of them. From the blood-soaked fields of medieval Europe to the royal courts of Byzantium and the dungeons of ancient empires, human history is filled with such examples where the line between punishment and performance was deliberately erased. Rulers used these acts to assert dominance maintain order and eliminate dissent. While the brutality of these methods may seem incomprehensible today, they reflect the darker sides of civilization, where power was maintained, not through law but through fear, and where suffering was not hidden but glorified in the public square. These punishments, though no longer practiced, continue to serve as grim reminders of how far humanity has come and how far it once went in pursuit of control and obedience. Each of these gruesome methods, from the brazen bull and blood eagle to the breaking wheel and impalement, tells a story not just of pain but of the systems and societies that allowed them. They remind us that behind every tale of cruelty there was a reason, a motive, a warning. They were tools not only of execution but of communication, powerful messages carved into bone and flesh, meant to echo through generations. And while they may now only survive in history, books, and legends, their legacy endures as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable torment.